Hey, what's up, guys? It's Tommy here, and I'm a queer, black, trans, Latino man living in Florida. Yo, I came up with a 50 this morning as to what are the things I'm going to talk about. And so, because I have such an extensive experience within the trans community of being a trans guy, I said I've been transitioning since 2008. So, you do the math. I've seen just like looking at other groups and stuff through Facebook. Yes, I know I'm old, that there are a couple of things that we do need as trans men specifically, and just as men also. And so I would like to start with my first edition. Some of you guys will hear me talk about a myriad of things: sobriety, transitioning, less about the physical part and the gender affirming care, and more about the experience of just being a trans guy. So let me give you a little bit of context and then we'll get into the story. There is a gentleman on the Pacific group of older trans men, and he basically goes on like a little bit of a tirade, right? He doesn't understand why the trans men of today are always asking for help and needing their hand held with transition, because in his day, 20 years ago, he had no one to help him. He had to take himself, he bust himself to his surgery, I guess bust himself back, then had no one to help him take care of himself post surgery. Things were so bad for him that he actually got nerve damage and so on and so forth. And he didn't understand why we weren't picking up ourselves by our bootstraps, basically. And our journey is our own, and we should be able to go at it alone. So I don't know if you can hear it, but I definitely can hear some patriarchy there. I can definitely hear some like, why don't you toughen up? Type of be like language. And I felt bad for this brother, for the most part, because I feel like, especially the older of us, right? We have a ton of trauma and things we have to undo that are no longer serving us. Right. So let's get into like the first thing, right? My first response to that type of stuff. When I used to fly, you go into the bathroom and the bathroom would say, have a little sign, and it would say, leave it better than you found it, right? So for the next person coming in. For some reason, we have lost our way with that type of thinking. But it's true. Trans guys today do have it a little easier to transition. They don't have to go through so many hoops and things that we had to go through. Some people can do GoFundMe's. Some people have a better support system. People have the language to know that they are trans a lot earlier today. We can spot it on the ground, and I have no problem with any of that. I love all that. That's the whole point. That was the whole point. The whole point of advocacy work and coming out and being in the community, right? And doing the things the community needs is so that people can have an easier time going through the transitions. It would be remiss and completely a failure on our part, the older generation, if the newer generation still have to go through so many hoops. So if my little buddy needs his hand held, I'm going to hold his hand because I wouldn't want anyone to go through whatever I went through, period. I didn't have it that bad. I was lucky and I had support. But now I get the opportunity to train a younger trans man, and he is about 17 years old. He came out when he was 12. He has a mom and dad to support him. He found a way to support his mom and dad through their transition, and he is probably the most well-adjusted teenager I ever met. And he teaches me something every time that we get together. I'm completely amazed by him, and I'm so happy he doesn't have to do all the undoing and unlearning and BS that I have to go through on a daily basis. He feels good and confident within his skin, and I love that for him. I love it. At first, I was really one of those like, you know, oh, getting the money for your top surgery is like a rite of passage. Excuse me, I have allergies. So then I was thinking about it. I'm like, where do I get this this rite of passage? Why does it bother me that homeboy or homegirl is seeking help from the community to be able to get their surgery? What bothers me about that? Because it doesn't really affect me personally. So something bothers me about that. Seeking deeper inside, I start to view that as weak. Oh, you're so weak you can't get it on your own. And then I started to realize that that is oppressive language, and it comes from a certain ideal, and that ideal is not mine. My ideal is to be compassionate and empathetic and to help when I can. So the idea that they're weak is really not true. They have the ability and the strength to say, hey, I need help. Because I personally, in my own personal experience, still have a hard time asking for help. And if you ask any man who grew up with patriarchal conditioning and programming, they also have a hard time asking for help. It's not the flex that we think. So because I have a hard time asking for help, I will spend more time in BS than actually being productive, right? And this person will spend less time with that. And I should be happy for that. I should be happy that the younger generation doesn't have to undo trauma, right? The trauma of just being yourself. They don't have to live in shame, live in fear. They don't have to be in the closet if they don't choose to. They have a world that is attempting to try to understand that. And the people that want the world to go back to the way it is basically saying that we want the opportunity to feel like we're better than you. We want the opportunity to oppress you and to not have you live the same quality of life that I do. Now, I'm using the words like patriarchy and oppression and things of that nature, and I'm sure that someone's gonna be like, "Well, Tommy, you're just playing victim." Okay, let's clear this up because I hate when people say that. Okay, when someone tells you you're playing victim, that is basically to absolve themselves of the responsibility of society to make things better and actually change things. Okay? You talking about your experience isn't playing victim. You talking about your experience and not doing something about it, that's totally different. Right? Because yes, I am a trans man, I am black, I'm queer, I'm Latino, I have all these different things about me that could be obstacles, but I still keep moving forward. So if someone were to tell me that I was playing a victim, I'd be like, bro, check yourself. Why are you so dedicated to oppressing me? Or why are you so dedicated to silencing me? Why does it bother you when I share parts of my story? Because it's a you situation, not a me situation. So we have to make sure that as people who are trans, and especially us men, that we are not like repeating the same BS ideas that keep us down as a people, right? Don't allow us to move forward, or at the very least, don't allow us to feel confident within not only our masculinity, but just being trans. A lot of us are like, oh, I'm not into the trans things. I'm just a man. Great. Really, what's wrong with being trans? Do you see where I'm going with this, right? In my journey, I had really, and I'm still doing this, and I'm still healing, and I'm still unlearning some things. Back in the day, yeah, pulling myself up by my bootstraps and being super hard on myself worked. Okay, it did work. It worked for a minute, and then it just stops working. And then what happens is that you develop a lot of depression and anxiety, and all that beating yourself up. Well, it doesn't do you any good because it just tears you down in the long run of things. So yeah, like homeboy was talking about being able to do things on his own, but in that on his own he also got a super hard injury, and now he has a reminder of this hard time all the time. Why would I want to do that to the younger generation is my question. I don't want them to suffer. The whole point of the older generation is to make it easier for the younger generation, right? They can and will learn discipline in other ways, but that's not the way they need to learn it. All right. So most of the kids today have to be smart. They have to know how to deduce and discern. And it's more about it's more about mental and spiritual strength, less about physical strength. Although being physical do a lot help too. I'm just saying this. Make sure that as you continue in this journey, you don't take on the language of the people or the ideas of the people who are oppressing you by oppressing yourself and oppressing others. You know, we are trans men. We don't have time for homophobia and internalized transphobia and misogyny. It doesn't go at all with us. You cannot build yourself up by oppressing another person. Right? So think about that before you start spewing things. Like, think about where your ideas come from and ask yourself this very hard question. Is this really what I think? Or have I been programmed to think that way? I hope you have a blessed day. See you later.